Hello, hello. How's it going?
Hello.
We're here. It is October 18th and the holidays are here. I don't know if you noticed, I've got my Holly Jolly shirt on. I could be from Arendelle, in Frozen, or I could be a Christmas ornament, but we are here. It's Jessica Liseski and Nick.
Nick Kaplan, back in the house.
Back in the house. We missed you. We missed our little duo.
I know.
We are, your weekly dose of medicine, just a little sugar, making it go down easier. We are here to bring you your news, retail, tech, e-commerce. Nick, are we professionals here?
I think we are. I mean, we certainly are dressed the part, and we have an amazing guest. So I think we're set up. We might be set up for success today. Rick chose a good time to let me occupy the chair.
That's right. That's right. We're going to take the reins. And before we kick off and we do our normal segment here with our show, we start with our headline hangover. Want to give a shout out to our partners, Maze. They are more downtown than Steph Curry. A great business, great agency. If you need some help with Shopify Plus, check out Maze. So appreciate them for helping us bring this killer show that we're going to have for you today. And Nick, you're going to start us off with a little bit of the headline hangover.
I'm like, it's all coming back now. So there was some really interesting stuff that happened this week. Let's begin with a friend of the show, a highly respected person inside the community, Kelly Getch, had an interesting post on LinkedIn talking about like lost deals. And I think that, Kelly is head of strategy at Commerce Tools, was kind of talking anonymously about a client who had seen a lot of deal flow not go their way and sort of postured about what does that look like for the industry. And I guess from my perspective, I think there was a comment from another friend of the show on the post. Check it out, Garish. And what it said was that, it has to make sense. I think that gone are the days of software signups for solutions that you're searching for versus things that you know. And I think, we talk a lot about this age of efficiency, and the software industry is not immune. It's like exploratory, I think, is somewhat what's driving some of these deals to not happen. But I also think that it is no longer about just jumping in, right? I think that it has to sort of make financial sense more so now than ever, as we're seeing this just shift inside the industry. More RFPs are happening, truly. I think they're no longer an acronym. I think people really do their research. And I think ultimately you're selling into a very knowledgeable, CFO, right? I think it isn't like, oh, just tell me what's going to happen. It's like, show me what's going to happen.
I think this is indicative of what I know Rick's talked about, you've talked about as well. People don't really have the gumption to just jump in and make a decision, especially one that they have to have patience for, like a platform decision that's going to take years, that they need to have strong, financial prowess to do, right? So are you going to keep investing and see those returns later? And then, if we want to flip up the diagram, I think it is pretty telling to see where, this mix is going. And what we're basically looking at, if you can't see the legend there on the left, that big blue section there is, change their mind, right? So, a lot of stuff happening. You got bad timing in here. They don't see the value, lost to competitor. That's a very small sliver, right, Nick? It's like 4.6%.
Exactly. And I think those are really the people that are out seriously looking, right? I think a lot of, I think we have a lot to cover, so I want to be sort of on top of that. But I think that a lot of people are in the mode of job security. And so if I'm always seeking out new solutions, then I'm always busy and I'm always doing implementations. And I think in this very sort of efficient moment, I think we're going to talk a bit throughout this conversation about Darwin. I think that you have to sort of look at input output, and it has to make sense. So not super surprised to see that from him at all. So
And let us know in the comments if there's any things you guys are seeing. So take us to our next headline, Nick. What else have we seen happening?
I think this is a good one. Starbucks. I love to put Starbucks in my crosshairs, and I think that Starbucks. I don't know if you knew this, Jess, but Starbucks got a new CEO.
I did. I heard. Actually, we covered this on the show. We were breaking news here.
I'm kidding. But I think in bringing on Brian Nicole, I think what often is the case with companies, it's like, oh, you did something somewhere else, come and do a copy and paste here. And with these businesses, they're not all one size fits all, right? And I think what he did at Chipotle was successful, right? I think what people don't talk about is behind that brand equity, innovation, pickup shelves, app investment was a major food safety crisis that preceded that. So it's sort of like saying, I'm going to take 2 years of negative comps and I'm going to comp really, really well. So I think there was a very low bar. I think, Starbucks has 16,000 locations in the United States. And it's going to be really hard to kind of go sideways and open more locations to get healthy. And so I think that there's a lot of pressure on this business to grow. I mean, it's a public company. I think how public companies value the public markets value businesses is through growth, and slowing down growth to be more efficient isn't necessarily an option. And so I think that Starbucks is, dealing with a pretty significant crisis. He's trying to raise prices, build brand equity, lower options on the menu to give people a little bit more scarcity in terms of new things being added on and not having so many choices. But I'm sure this will shock you. I'm very bearish on Starbucks. I think that where my money in my household goes at this point with my daughters is 2 places. They both begin with S. Sephora is one. And Starbucks has become the other. And I don't know what that means for them. I mean, I think they'd ultimately like to have an AM, PM business, right? So we're going in the morning, we're getting our coffee, and our children are going in the afternoon and getting what one daughter refers to as a pink drink. Exactly.
Yes, the pink drink.
Exactly. But there's actually, I believe, a strawberry acai lemonade. So I think that Starbucks is looking at China for expansion. I think that we're not going to see, when you need to drive conversion, you lower your prices. It has impact. Starbucks is going to raise its prices and try to build equity and trust. Guess what? There are a lot of options. I can walk out my door.
Go to Dunkin'.
I can go to have a wonderful little pod. So I think that the world has changed. The world has changed. So
yeah, agree. Well, we had the meme of, instead of the smaller burritos, he's not doing the smaller coffee cups. He's just kicking up those prices. So it will be one to watch. I agree. We'll see, especially in this economy. If I'm Dunkin', I'm capitalizing on that pretty hard 100%. With lots of other options, like you said.
The door is open.
The door is always open. And in another story that we have, we are always interested to see what's in our packages. We have this notion of surprise and delight. And in this woman's Shein purchase, she actually had much more than she bargained for. We're going to play the video, and we'd love to know what you guys think. Yeah, so here was this little friend. I don't know if you can see the up close and personal. But this student who had her Shein package come through had a nice little scorpion treat there. And they did deal with this humanely, just so everybody knows. They had someone come and pick up this, beautiful little surprise and delight that they offered. But yeah, so is this a new strategy for them, Nick? What you thinking?
It's their unboxing 2.0. So I think, to keep us moving along, I'm going to make one comment. Buyer beware, meaning people are very quick to vote with their wallets. We've talked about this quite a bit and not know where their garments come from. But everybody wants everything to be environmental and everyone wants to pay nothing. This is where your garments from Shein are coming from. A place that is putting a scorpion in the package. Enough said.
Correct. Well, yeah, enough said. So
It's like,
I'm sure this will not be the last type of story like this of what you get. Remember, minimal lead, guys, minimal lead. All right. So moving on, we have some other kind of news on the opposite side of the spectrum here, which is what's happening in the luxury market. And for a while, we've talked about this split between luxury and discount, and there would always be kind of this room. The middle is where there was struggle, right? Your department stores, your Macy's, your Kohl's, things like that, because luxury was always going to have a life, and our discount stores were always going to have a life. Well, luxury is now feeling the pressure as well, and they've actually seen 10% of their business decline in China this year compared to where projections had been about 5 to 6% in sales growth. And so that Chinese economy that had really been continuing to fuel the luxury growth is waning. And so now they're looking at basically a decline of 1% in organic sales year over year as they start to report out on Q3. And this isn't good for Kering either. So Kering's not immune. Gucci for a while, I think, was possibly going to survive. But when 35% of their revenues depended on Asia Pac as well, it's really tough market. So I think that we're now going to continue to see these, luxury retail struggle. The luxury retailers struggle. They're not going to be able to kind of keep and maintain the share of wallet. What do you think this means, Nick? Will they kind of make it out this year, get a bounce back in holiday, or, are they looking at 2025 and seeing how they shore up?
I think we're looking at 2025 and see how they shore up. I think that we're in a very strange moment inside the world. There isn't a lot for people to grasp onto at any income level or bracket to feel totally safe. I think the election is looming, and while I don't think that that's impacting the Chinese market, I do think that, part of my routine is, hey, Google, what's the news? And after, the big international news from yesterday, the second up was China, and that the stimulus isn't working as they expected as the second largest economy in the world. So I think, again, a thread woven throughout this conversation is going to be consumers in what matters. And, I think that, look, people are always going to have FOMO. Right? Luxury is an ability to sort of create status, right? But the Chinese value it far differently than other markets. And I think that it being in a complicated state will have ripples that we'll see throughout the year. And I think quite possibly into the first half of 2025. And to Rick's point, we're getting a running commentary. I feel like I'm being judged. I don't know what the consolidation of like a My Teresa or Saks and Evans, what that means as well for all of this. But, while I think Bernard Arnault is now, what did we talk about earlier, at $14 billion poorer, he still has 170 some odd billion to be okay with. So,
he'll be okay.
So,
well, he'll be okay.
But with that, we have this amazing guest, right? So,
yes. Yeah, we do. We don't want to keep him waiting because there's so much that we want to get to. We have Erik Huberman here, who is the owner and founder of Hawke Media. Erik's story is super impressive, and we've had him on the show a couple of times because there's always something new to unpack, and he has so much of a vast insight of what's going on in the industry. But just as a reminder, Erik built his first business at the age of 6, and he's only gone up since then in his entrepreneurial journey. He's architected several successful ventures. He's revolutionized industries, set new standards. And with Hawke Media, he's essentially materializing this vision, which was to disrupt the marketing world for the better. And I think there's nothing stopping him in achieving that. So, Nick, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, well, first of all, Erik, I wouldn't dress like this for Rick. So only certain people command my really putting on the fine threads. But Michael Rubin has nothing from a youth perspective on Erik. And Erik has, in addition, he's not just got this one dimension, he's got Hawke AI, right? So there's a lot happening there that I think is transformational and innovative. And as we head into what we're calling a very Darwinian moment and a lot of transition and change inside the industry, especially the sector that he touches, which based on his acquisitions is growing, and we'll talk about that. It is an amazing time to have him on. And this is a guy that, like, he knows a thing or two about scaling a business through flexibility and adaptability, right? So I think it's going to be good lessons learned, not just in operating, but strategy as well. So I'm excited to get to be in today. Rick, thank you for taking the day off to see family. I'm excited to sit here. Welcome, Erik.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So the last time we talked to you, you were on your way to Cannes.
Has it been that long? Wow.
Yeah, it's you were about to go on the flight, and I think you had invited me to go, and I just couldn't make it work, you know. So tell me, south of France, it was just a little difficult, but yeah, tell me, like, how was that? The pictures looked amazing.
Yeah,
Your chat looked amazing.
I've gone every year for like 8 years, and I'd say number one, the excuse to go to the south of France every year and do work is a very easy one to look to justify. So, that's the thing is everyone that goes pretty much has that same thought. So we went out there. I've gone out there and I don't come from the agency world. I built and sold 2 e-com companies and then just started helping others. And then all of a sudden I had an agency. And so it's not like I understand, even to this day, I've been doing it 11 years. I still don't get what goes on at Havas and WPP and Omnicom and all the big guys. And so I go out there to learn and network and meet and connect. And it's been valuable every time, but it's usually unpredictable. It's kind of that, like, a lot of people go there with a very forced agenda and everything's scheduled, and they go out there and they don't really leave time for serendipity. And I found the opposite is way better. Like, have a few things that that, like, God forbid, you don't really run into anything that valuable. You have a few good meetings that are going to make it worth it. Yeah. But we ended up throwing a barbecue on the beach with Anthony Anderson because I have a TV show with him. Yes. And that was super fun. I had like 300 people show up to that. Everything from, it's like my once a year reunion with Gary Vaynerchuk. This time was like 2 a.m. on the Crescent, the main like boardwalk in front of the beach. Just like, oh, hey man, he's like, gives me a hug. He's like, how is everything? It looks like you're doing great. Like it was a quick catch up this time. Usually we get a little more time. And then just made tons of brand connections, tons of other agencies, tons of interesting people doing interesting things. And again, got to hang out on the beach. I was training for a triathlon and I ran my fastest 5K in France, which I didn't expect. I was just hanging. So it was a great week out there. Not going to lie.
Yeah. So is your strategy there? Was it the barbecue, or were you being like slightly hungover? So it just like gave you a little fuel.
So funny enough, like I don't drink anymore. So hangovers, they used to drink a lot of rosé there, but now these days I'm the one that's up early, which is weird because that's not normal. Yeah. I was like, because of weird jet lag and stuff too, I was like on the beach when everything opened every day and was with the early risers, which was like a different town for me. So I got to meet new people because I was usually out with the late night people that were going at 4 or 5 a.m. Cool. So that was fun. And yeah, it was really just enjoy it while, connecting with people. And that was a big part of it.
I mean, does business get done at Con? Yeah. Like I'm always kind of curious, right? I mean, we're seeing a first time shop talk happening right now in Chicago, right? None of us are there. Right? So, although I feel like in the end, there was definitely a rally and people did go, which I found interesting.
I got a couple texts from people, but I mean, they said it was going to be quiet, but I haven't seen much. I talked to them about doing something with them and then honestly never heard back. So I was like, all right.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. But like you've done it's just kind of curious to hear what's happening right now, because I saw a post yesterday about your most recent, I shouldn't say your most recent acquisition.
Actually, not our most recent. It's the most recently announced. We've done one since.
Got it. Wow. Okay. Wow. So we want to hear about that. But like, you go to Cannes, right? You left from the show essentially to go, and you go to make connections. You go to see what's happening. You go to, do business. Like, go to look at acquisitions, all of the above. Is it for your network? Like, because I think a lot of people
we're acquiring smaller agencies. A lot of them are not going to be there. So not that, business definitely gets done. But I will say, like, it's kind of, I always love the excuses like, oh, well, nothing gets done there. It's like, it's on you. It's the same. And this is a bit of maybe not PC line, but I remember I had a friend in college that we'd always walk into bars and he'd always tell me there's not enough girls here. I'm like, do you need more than one? Like, it's that why, like, you can always make an excuse for yourself of why it's not working out for you. But like, I have no issue. And really what I do is I try to spend all my time making that first connection, talking to tons of people. Again, all the heads of agencies, all these CMOs, all these people are in one place in France where, again, it's fun too. So they're in good spirits, et cetera. And then I just try to make sure that I have notes of follow-up with all of them. And then the week after, I make sure to actually do it. And I think that simple task is where 99% of people fall apart. They just don't do the follow-up. And that is where things happen. And sometimes the follow-up's a waste of time. It just depends.
Yeah. Well, also congrats. You won or Hawke won Digital Marketing Agency of the Year. So that's really exciting. Congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was a good one. That was a fun award to win.
Yeah. I mean, it must feel like all of you've built towards is kind of building to this moment. And, going back to Nick's point, you have been really successful in this acquisition strategy and continuing to grow through that, which is different, I think, than some agencies that are maybe either closing shop or just don't necessarily have the differentiation to keep winning business. And so curious about like your strategy and how you think about the acquisitions that you are going after.
It really came from this realization. So the past 2 years in agency world have not been good for anyone. Like if you're tiny and you found a niche and you scaled, great. But I'm talking about like most people that were established are down, even maybe slightly up. We're up a little bit, but it's not like been gangbusters. It's been in very different, like 2021 to 2022 is insane in terms of the contrast because it was a rocket ship for most markets. So I was looking at that and I'm addicted to growth. I want to build and grow and do new things. And like, so I was miserable in 22 when it was really more about shoring things up and making sure we were ready if it got worse and everybody's pulling back. And that was not a fun time. So I was looking at it. And then thankfully, it's funny. I ran into one of the funds I'm invested in. I had this conversation with them 2 years ago about like, well, if I'm feeling this, I don't think it's me. I think it's the market, which was the first time I really, like, I always said, I don't want to hear what the market's doing. I don't care. Like I'm running my business. But I was like, well, when the entire world is saying, pull back, pull back, pull back, it's going to pull back. And so it's like, okay, I don't think I'm the only one feeling this. And if I'm not, what I do have is I've had 8 years of tailwinds that allowed me to build a big infrastructure and a great team and a lot of support to help me manage this. There's a lot of agencies that don't have that. And so it's the be greedy when others are fearful kind of line where it's like, why don't I go talk to all these guys that are on their own running these smaller agencies where they don't have support and say, why don't we just do this together and give you the support? And now that they've seen what, when you're on a rocket ship and you're doubling every year, like you don't need anyone. You're going to run through a wall. When you get those headwinds, I had periods where I was like, I don't want to do this. And that was the first time in a decade of doing this. And I was like, I would in complete authenticity say, I'm doing this the rest of my life. I love this. Nothing's ever going to change. And then I was like, ooh, I don't want to do this tomorrow, let alone the rest of my life. And so I worked through that and, just kicked myself in the ass and kind of made things work. But I knew a lot of people were feeling the same way. And so I was like, how do I, again, make hay while the sun shines? There's so many like cliches for this, but it was like, let's find a way to partner up. And then we did it a few times and it worked really well. And we had already done a couple of small acquisitions that randomly popped up, but then we got aggressive at it. So last year we did 4 and they went well and we integrated them. And I was sitting with an advisor in January telling him how these deals went and what we were doing. And he goes, wait, explain to me how this is all working again. And I told him kind of the model and the strategy. And he goes, invest everything you have into this right now. Like just go for broke, go big. And I'm like, okay. Like it was kind of like, I was just going to like kind of keep maintaining. And I was like, sure, fair enough. Took the kick in the butt, went back to my team, said, we need to scale this. We did 4 last year. And I put a target of 20 for this year. I was like, we're going to do 20 this year. And they looked at me like I'm insane, which is kind of my job. And, but so far this year to date, we've done 10. So we're in October with 10 done with several more working on. And so it's like, okay, so maybe we're not going to hit 20, but I know that if I had said 10, we would have hit 7.
You would, right.
So it's been a huge growth year for us. We have, it's funny, my CRO has called it the Knights of the Round Table. We have this group now of agency founders that we're working with that are all running their own things, but now they're all collaborating and it's turning into this ecosystem. And they're all very different. They've all been around for a little while, but like we bought Lemonade, which is a very great creative and strategy agency that's been focused on the gaming and crypto industry.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Normal Bear, which is really more big OEMs and manufacturers. Jacuzzi is their main and biggest client. We got PRP, which is an education-focused PR firm that's now expanding outside of education. But all these different dynamics that now all working together, it's like, wait, you do that really well, and I do this really well. Why don't we mesh this together? And it's working. And that's been what's fun. It's like we're starting, it's picked up through the second half of the year. Like it slowly ramps. When I say we've done 10, we did 4 in June, 1 in July, 1 in August, 1 in September, and then 1 in October. So that's 8 of the 10 came in the second half of the year. And so they're all like getting up to speed, but meshing together. And we're starting to see that engine really turn, which is fun.
That's awesome.
I think there's 2 really interesting things that you said that I hope people took notice of. One is about betting. And I think it's really important to achieve growth. You have to be willing to make strategic and well thought but bets.
Yep.
And 2, I think as your role as leader isn't just to set strategy, it's to challenge the status quo, to be a little crazy, to drive those bets and create that growth. And I think people need to understand that.
And then work through it. I mean, the amount of mistakes we've made this year trying to figure this shit out is actually borderline scary. Like it really is. There have been sleepless nights where I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And there's a slew of things that come in because we're buying other people's businesses. It's not like they run them exactly like us. And then we adopt all their good stuff and all their bad stuff.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what is this? Why do you do this? And so all that fixing, frankly, costs money, but you got to figure it out quickly. And that's been really what we've started to learn this year is just urgency on fixing things because they're going to be broken. And then, I heard the founder of Oak Tree Capital speak, a huge private equity firm. And he said something about 2008 that really is what set him up as a success. They sat around when the markets were just a disaster and everything was falling apart. And he said, we decided there are 2 opportunities. Either the world's going to end or it's not. Mm-hmm. So everything was an all-time low. Everything looked in the toilet, but it's like either like we've just ended capitalism or this will come back. And if that's, and again, that's oversimplifying, but there's truth in that because then it's like, well, if it's the end of capitalism, who gives a shit what bets we make? It's the end of capitalism. Yeah. So we might as well bet heavy right now. And so at the bottom of 2008 or 2009, I guess would be the bottom, he just bet heavy on a bunch of stuff and obviously
paid off.
So
it paid off.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
So no, it's just the other question I had for you, because as people think about acquisitions or even just doing mergers or strategic partnerships, finding ways to integrate that culture and do it quickly can be challenging. And it feels like you guys have this formula that you can hit on pretty quickly to get people to come into the organization, leverage the resources that you have. So your onboarding strategy's got to be really tight and in sync.
Yep.
Do you mind talking about that a little?
Yeah, no, I mean, the nice thing is people ask, like, because I get asked a lot about this, the culture side hasn't been an issue other than a couple individuals. Like it's rare, but it happens. But mostly the nice thing is I feel like because our agency and most agencies are so client facing, you kind of have to be a decent human being. And so you get a bunch of decent human beings that like marketing in a room and it's generally they get along. Like it hasn't been, there's exceptions, but the rule is that hasn't been horrible. The other piece is, just for us, all the technology, all the softwares, all the expenses, all the contractors, all the stuff outside of the employees that we have to get our hands around and figure out what's redundant, what's not. Again, part of the challenge here is to make sure we clean things up really quickly, because if we're double paying for a bunch of stuff, that's how we can lose a lot of money on this stuff. So we do that. Getting our arms around, and a lot of this happens in diligence, getting our arms around their client relationships, how good they are, how they bill them, how, all the kind of working capital side of it is a really big part. The financial side has honestly been where the differences are stark, and understand why some people struggle with these businesses, because, it might look, your P&L might look great, but you're actually not getting paid by anyone and those kind of things. So that's been a big one. And then making sure the founder lands in a place that they feel like there was no bait and switch. And that's the biggest one, is being super transparent up front, trying to be super articulate, like this is going to go, and set their expectations right, and then stay in there with them and really walk them through everything. That's been a big part of it. And yeah, that's been a really valuable part of the how we built it out, because that's where that Knights of the Round Table thing came in. We found that one-on-one meetings were great, but it'd just be like, hey, how can I help you? Great. How's everything going? Let me remove that roadblock. I'm sorry, that's a pain in the ass. And I tell them all, like, first 2-3 months are fucking nightmare. Like you're having to maintain your business. We're starting to integrate and take things over, but we're not there yet because we're having to learn all the details of like, oh yeah, that's over here. And oh yeah, my bookkeeper handles that. And this is, we're asking them 500 questions while they still have to do things. Right. But then what I've seen now is once that 2 to 3 months is up, then it just starts to, the flywheel starts to go.
You get the,
Thank God. Now I know you guys, I know who to go to for what. It's a lot more clear and it can, really take off.
So as a luminary, as a person that has vision and perspective and has sort of a reach across a bunch of industries, I mean, let's talk about this moment. It sounds like for you, opportunistic, for others, maybe the end of a cautionary tale. But I mean, how are you seeing it? I mean, do you consider this moment, I guess, industry-wide, as we transition maybe to talking a bit about the near future? Are we in this Darwinian, maybe the most Darwinian, Darwinian moment inside the industry?
I'd say inside the industry, yes. I was going to say, I thought you were going to go on the economy in general. I'd say no, but I think Darwinian is a really fair way to put it, because I think if you're managing your business well right now and you actually understand marketing and digital and e-com and all these things, you're probably doing fine, if not good. And I'd say probably more fine. It's the survival of the fittest. It's exactly what it is. I think a lot of people, like, I hear the term ROAS still way too much, even though enough smart people have said, stop looking at your daily ROAS. It's the dumbest thing you can do to build a brand. And yet still it is a topic. And those people that are bringing it up now are like, my ROAS is so far down. It's like, you're an idiot. You're still looking at the Facebook dashboard like it's a good place to figure out your data. And it's a 7-day window when your purchase cycle is 30 days. Like, really, really dumb. And sorry if I'm insulting anyone, but you probably need to hear it at this point bluntly. And so, again, I think it's survival of the fittest. I think that's fair. And I think we're going to, I'm optimistic on 2025. I was optimistic on 2024. And in a lot of ways, it was better this year than it was 22 and 23 from my perspective, because 22 and 20, like halfway, like basically May, June of 22 to like February, March of 23, everyone just declined like crazy. And are starting to grow back, and so we should probably even apologizing for misspelling apologies. So that was the ADD kick again.
Grammar.
So, but once we got there, then it's not been great, but it hasn't been bad. Like, decline is bad, maintenance is boring, growth is fun. Like, that's how I would look at this. And like, I don't think people are seeing decline anymore. I think what you're seeing now is the people that have been hanging on for dear life since the decline that haven't made adjustments. I've seen this a lot with, like, we have about 700 companies run marketing for. So we see all types of people making different decisions. And there's people that just refuse to cut their overhead, even though they've shrank. And so they're just underwater with their fixed expenses, and they refuse to accept that their business is smaller now. And it should come back, but that is a very common thing we see, is like, you don't make the hard decisions when it's, in the moment, and you try to bleed it out. And then by the time you get to a point where maybe you could have made some changes, you kept yourself underwater. So you've got to make those decisions in real time. And that's what I think we're seeing. Plus, just some culling and just some people that are just weren't meant to make it through a more difficult time when things aren't easy. I think the tailwinds are going to start coming back next year. I mean, I've just seen it anecdotally myself with like the amount of funds that are starting to close funds again. So the money's starting to come back. I'm getting hit up all the time by private equity and bankers now. Like, hey, we've got someone that wants to buy you. And that went away for a year and a half. I had like one-offs, but it was like, now it's like actually, and we're not trying to sell, to be clear, but we are, one little exclusive announcement we haven't announced publicly, but we probably will look at raising money next year if the market's good, if we can get the right partner, because of this strategy with M&A, along with our AI and tech development. We're realizing we finally have a great use for capital where money can make more money, and we've been bootstrapped. We have raised no money for 11 years, so we're finally at the point where we're curiously looking into it. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but the nice thing is we're in that position of we don't need to do anything, but we might.
To all
You might want to take a call. Yeah.
To all your future founders out there, heed those words. We bootstrapped it for 11 years and have no outside capital, which can be a great thing, by the way. Debt also could be a great thing when it's all manageable.
Totally. But I think that my dad said something to me early when I was like, I raised money I was at Science Incubator where they launched Dollar Shave Club, raised money there. Like I've raised money in the past. My dad said something that's always stuck with me, which is money's expensive. So like the reason someone's giving you money is because they're going to make a lot more with their investment. So if I'm going to go raise, and sell a third of the company, whatever, let's just say I just sold a third of my company. If I'm really that optimistic about the future, why do I want to do that? The only reason I would do that is that I can take that money and get a way bigger
value
pie and create a ton of value with. Like I can get a better return on their money myself than they're getting, and we all win. Yep. And that's when it makes sense. Just raising money for the sake of raising money is just a great way to lose your business. And
to bridge yourself to stay status quo, right?
Our cap table is 2 people at Hawke Media. So and with 1 person with Phantom Equity. So 3 of us own Hawke Media. They earned it. It's 2 of my my partner and my senior executive that they've been here forever. They've built it with me. Like that's it. We don't give away equity freely. And so we're very, conservative about that.
Yeah, this is really helpful. So, we're talking about like maybe some capital is getting unlocked. We know it's been pent up for a long time. We've talked to you before about your feelings on the economy and the consumer. Would love to just pivot to holiday because it's here, guys. I got, my right in time for Prime Day. I got my Amazon Share of the Joy catalog so that my kids could go through and tell me the 800 toys that they want and circle that all nicely. So
by the way, can someone comment in the chat who invented the Advent calendar? Like, do you have those in your house?
Good, yeah.
Right? Yeah. That was like, I wish it had been me, by the way. Like, talk about a marketing ploy. But let's go to Erik and the consumer because I am really interested to hear this.
Yeah. So far, I'm one to not try to predict the future because we're always wrong. Like, I think it's like economists are right like 26% of the time.
But it's fun.
It's fun. And the game is fun. I always like, when I say I don't try to predict the future, I am constantly trying to predict the future, but I don't take action against it, I guess is the point.
Sure.
And so all the indicators, we haven't seen a softening consumer. The fact that the Fed decided to do the 0.5% rate reduction indicates that they might know something I don't, that they're a little worried about the future, but or they could have just committed to it and been like, you know what, we don't need this. So it's one or the other. I'm sure inflation has put pressure all year, but that's also subsided to an extent. So it kind of goes to the similarity of, there's 2 pieces of this. One is it's similar to what I said about the decline 2 years ago in businesses. And now some of the ones that haven't been able to hang on are really falling apart, but most people are okay. I think that's similar with inflation, where there's some people that have now racked up a bunch of debt because they were trying to keep up for 2 years and now they're struggling. I think, all of this takes time to flood through. That being said, it depends on how you generalizing the consumer, I think is part of the problem. Like the sort of, lower income families are probably struggling. And that part sucks because inflation, it's not like inflation going down means prices went down, as most people understand. Like prices are still really high.
When they're up, they're up.
It's not going higher. So it's really hard. And wages have somewhat kept up, which is interesting. So other than minimum wage. So I think, you're dealing with this lower income, huge struggle, but, and this is not to be insensitive, those aren't the people that are buying mostly like the e-commerce stuff, the goods, the impulse buys, a lot of the brands we talk about, they're not the customer. So, Walmart is reporting records and Amazon's reporting records. So they're still doing well, which that is their customer. So for the middle market, for the middle class, upper class, I actually think they're doing okay. And I think they're continuing to spend. And I think like what we're seeing is retail and brick and mortar is actually slowing growth. They're still growing a little bit in brick and mortar, but e-commerce is starting to surge again. And so we're seeing like, if you're in digital and you're in e-com, like it was a weird 2 years, but now it's starting to surge. Yeah. So I'm actually pretty bullish on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But what's cool is we have Hawke AI, so we can literally see day of how to go.
We need to get our friends and family and get access to Hawke AI. And I think it's interesting because, we talk a lot about from a predictive perspective, holiday is going to be, X, right? I mean, the NRF, it's always sunny at the NRF, right? It came out, I think maybe even this morning with their positive comp prediction. But we don't talk about the comps on the bottom line, right? Like what it's going to cost brands to get it, right? And I mean, I think that one of the things that we really are focusing on at RMW is your value isn't revenue. Your value isn't EBITDA. Your value is your active trailing 12-month customer file. Think through that lens and manage your inventory efficiently, and you're going to be okay. And so,
I totally agree.
Curious from your perspective, like I mean, and Jess, I love Jess. She chides me often about my negativity as a New Yorker and an old school Garmento. I mean, I see credit card debt out of control. I mean, at some point we're going to stop lending to people. I see the housing market is a mess. There isn't enough inventory for the demand at all levels. I mean, houses, like, it's incredible. I still see the cost of groceries. Like we could get out of Trader Joe's for $100. Never could spend above 100. Now we can't spend less than 150. So I see this pressure happening.
Yep.
Do you see this sort of permeating into your world, into your brands, like how they're operating, and does that change anything?
Again, the problem is you have to dive a step deeper into those stats. It goes back to who's racking up the credit card debt. Where is that coming from? And one anecdote that I've seen quite a bit of is Gen Z's given up on saving. So I'll never afford a house. So
they don't want the house.
Yeah. And so I've had I had a former employee telling me this the other day, that with a bunch of his friends that I happen to run into, that we're racking up credit card debt because fuck it, in 10 years it's all falling apart anyways. And there's like this nihilistic view from Gen Z that is driving that I think will have repercussions, but I don't think it takes down the entire economy. I think that there's going to be individuals with pain, and we've kind of seen this the past 2 years where the marketing business and the e-com business has been rough for 2 years. Wouldn't call it a recession because a lot of other things have done great. So it's starting to, I feel like there's been everything's become a little disconnected in a good way, where you can have a recession in one sector, but not another. And it can be a little different. And I think you're going to have the same thing where like companies that serve the Gen Z and serve people that are racking up all this debt that eventually catches up to them will probably not do well. But there's plenty of other market in other places. And so it's just about being nimble in that sense, because there's going to be opportunity. And I think that, or you can tell yourself, oh, it's a bad market, I can't do anything, which is what people love, that excuse.
Well, and that's where they start cutting brand. We've talked about this a lot. They start cutting their brand spend. They start, you're really tightening up.
But it's suicide.
The amount of, this is why I say I don't try to predict the future. I just look at the data. And again, I don't try to take action on predicting the future, is because I learned that really heavily in COVID. When COVID hit, we had a bunch of e-com brands tell us to stop spending right now. And we're like, why? You're still doing, I know there's a disease out there. I know it, but everyone's locked at home. Like, I will never forget a furniture company that the founder I went through 2008. I know where this is going. Cut all my spend right now. This is going to be, we're in for a disaster. Furniture in 2020. You know how well, it went nuts.
But this isn't 2008, right? I mean, I think that the iPhone was invented in 2007. It was still in its infancy, right? So we as a society consumed and transacted far differently.
Yeah.
I think having been through a bankruptcy, and we didn't have any money, so I did it myself essentially. Go back, right? I think what people do, to your comment, Jess, is they cut, right? And all that. When you play defense, you're dead.
Yes, exactly.
So take it all and bet it on black, or bet it on red, but make the bet. And I think that's what you're sort of saying, Erik, right? It's like, you got to invest to grow. You got to grow to survive or stabilize. And when you cut, you don't have a partner like Hawke or someone else, right, to help you, which I see a lot of people looking finally, thank goodness, outside the building for that subject matter expertise and that partnership that they lack, and being willing to not see an agency fee as a fee, but as an investment for expertise. Yeah, it's like I'm hiring an agency versus a CIO, right? Like the CIO is always, for all the CIOs out there, I apologize, but you're always in my crosshairs because I don't really understand the need for the job. But get a partner, right? I mean, to survive and bet.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons. I mean, that outside perspective and knowing how the market's trending. Like, again, with that time, we didn't have Hawke AI yet, but we at least had an anecdotal view of like, hey, things are going well in the numbers.
Right.
Like, turn off the news and look at your own data
Yeah.
and go, oh,
Right,
like we're making money. Like, I know it's crazy out there, but like this is working. And until it's not, until you see indicators that things are bad, you don't need to do anything. Keep an eye on it. But yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about it's going to be a great Black Friday, Cyber Monday. People, though, have been discounting all year just to try to drum up some type of energy and enthusiasm. Do you feel like they might have pulled too soon on the discounts, or it's just going to be I've hit you at the right moment, right time, because people are shopping when they're shopping?
Exactly. I think that's it. I think people are shopping when they're shopping. I think that discounts are a way to differentiate during that period of like buy from me versus them. And we all like, I mean, I literally have a list of like things that I'm going to buy that I don't need right now that I'm going to buy that weekend. Depending on how they discount, I'll buy it from this person or buy it from that person. Like that is what a lot of people do. And so they're still going to buy it. That doesn't change anything, I don't think. And now on an individual basis, if you over discount, like what we've seen is like, you don't even really, you just need some reason for that to break through the noise so that they go, oh, I should go buy this thing now. I've been wanting to buy it. It doesn't necessarily have to be one-upping yourself or going crazy. Like it just needs to give them a reason.
Yeah. Well, and I know there's no silver bullet. Everyone wants one, right? And it's like, oh, if I just could do this thing. But are there some trends you're seeing, whether it's new channels, social commerce, shifting of budgets that you'd say, hey, look, I do think, and what we're advising clients to do is spend a little bit more energy here versus here?
Well, so I hate to give this advice now because it's too late, but like so many, but to Nick's point, your existing customer list and your existing, sort of email list and everything are where your value is, but you should be building that a long time ago. I watched so many people. So the J months are bad months for everything, but like self-improvement, health and wellness, et cetera. So January, or June, July are usually bad for most e-com brands. And those are the best times to spend because all these people that are looking at ROAS go, oh, ROAS is bad, pull back. And if you can understand that you're still generating traffic and leads, CPMs are lower in those times. By the way, you weren't dealing with political competition like you are right now, where prices are up 15 to 30%. Like, it was a good time to do that. So that's number one is for next year, do that. Like you need to stay consistent. And number two, because all these people ramp up their spends in Q4. I'm always like, great. Yeah.
It's so crazy. I know.
Spend all your money during a time when everyone else is. And like,
I also love when people do brand campaigns for the first time in Q4. That's going to help you.
Yeah, exactly. So again, sales cycle. People don't see an ad and buy something today generally. And they are in buying mode. So you get a little more of that in Q4, but the cost is so much higher that you're like, I don't get it. But so a lot of email marketing, a lot of SMS marketing. Those are two great channels. Figuring out a way to engage your audience and bring them in over the next 2 months is just a great way to do it. What can you do that will engage your customers and get them into your community and make them feel connected and make them want to buy from you and give gifts from you? And also know that 95% of purchases during the holidays are for themselves. Gifts are a small percentage of purchases. So
completely.
Yeah. So
it's one for you, one for me.
Yeah. You know what the holidays have become? I mean, this, and I say this to our clients, right? This is your inventory management period. People have like very short memories, right? So if you need to kind of correct your mistake, utilize this moment, right? Go on sale more than you normally would. But to Erik's point, I think that people really struggle with thinking about the 12 months, right? And valuing themselves on building their existing customer data. I think that's, I just don't understand the industry. But
you shouldn't be rushing to hit holidays right now. Like, and
that to your point, if you're talking about holiday 2024, got bigger problems.
And if you're seeing your advertising working right now and you are actually seeing conversions, don't pull back either because it's expensive. We've had a few people ask us to stop spending money because of the election. And I'm like, you got to turn off CNN or Fox or whatever, pick your poison. Like, just stop. The world's going to be fine. These people have both already been in the office. So like, I'm not going to get too political, but like, let's just be real here. They both held the office. I know that there's jabs at both sides, but like, stop it. We'll be fine.
Well, P.S. isn't the rumor that Facebook or Meta, like they're blocking ads or not showing as many ads anyway? Wasn't that the article that came out?
I didn't see that, but
that they're trying to suppress some. Anyways,
well,
Yeah.
There's so many
There we
different
go.
stories. But since we're all like so great at the news, etc., I mean, I don't know, Jess, what do you think? Eric, even though you sort of were like anti prediction, I feel like, I don't know if I'm going to get to be back on here before Christmas.
As I said, I'm not anti-prediction. I'm anti-taking action on prediction.
Got it. Well, then we'll qualify it by saying I'm going to ask you to make a prediction. People don't trade on Eric's prediction.
Nope.
But let's hear it. What is it? What's your prediction?
Prediction for what?
For holiday. What is your holiday prediction? We're going to be plus, we're going to be minus. You have it? Can you give us a?
I think we'll be slightly plus. I don't think it'll be a gangbusters, but I think it will be. It really depends on like if the election does kick off a civil war or something, which I don't think it will. But there's a lot of people that say that. Like if it actually ends up with a bunch of turmoil that people get distracted right during that time, that could hurt the holidays for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I still think people like retail therapy. People want to buy stuff. Like, I think people were waiting for a recession the past 2 years that didn't come fully. And so I think other than the compression on, again, the lower income households, I think you're going to see a normal holiday.
Got it. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I said mine was, I think it's slightly positive, flat. I mean, I don't think that we're going to see the 3%, and that NRF predicted. I think that might be a little on the high side, but
is that 3% across all retail or just e-com?
Yeah, all retail.
No, yeah, retail I think might be flat to down. I think online will be up quite a bit.
Online for sure. We'll do well. It
do you think we're going to flirt with double digits? Like, because they're predicting 7 to 9. Maybe might we hit 10 over?
I would say I think
for sure.
I would. If my gut was around 9, so it could be up to 13. But yeah.
Well, I have a hinting suspicion that you will be back to, and Vinny will probably play this clip to see. So it'll be fun. But it has been, Jess. I mean, it is such a pleasure. Eric, I loved last time I caught the tail end with the Kaplan's Corner, but it has been wonderful to hear you and what's happening at Hawke Media. And, Rick, I think you see you watching. So thank you for allowing me to sit in on this one. It's been amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it, you guys. We're excited to see how things shape up with the holidays.
Dancing the holidays? So
yeah, we'll dance. Dance with my catalog.
Oh, there it goes.